Boy oh boy, have I got a story for you today. To this day, I think my dream car would be a crystal green metallic 3.3 turbo. You know, when the first Porsche Turbo came out, 1975, I was just out of school and I just thought it was the best thing ever. I always wanted a Porsche Turbo. And you know what? I finally got one. It took 42 years. This car, the one we're in right now, it wasn't the original 260 horsepower 3-litre turbo. It wasn't even a 996 with 420 horsepower. This one, if you've seen the review, over 650. It's an absolute monster of a car. Without a doubt, it's a much better car than the original 930 in terms of ergonomics, practicality, comfort, air conditioning, and massive amount more power. And it won't kill you. All-wheel drive. It's probably the fastest accelerating car I've ever been in, maybe bar a Formula Holden. It's the sort of car that frightens passengers, and to be honest, sometimes I feel a bit intimidated by it myself. It's easy to drive, piece of cake, but every drive in this car is an event. The only change I've done to this car is to modify the exhaust to make it actually a bit quieter. It's still really boisterous, but it's better, and it doesn't drone at highway speed now. Now I know not everybody loves the styling of the 996, but like all Porsches, it ages well. I think you find over time it'll get better and better, and it looks better now than it did in 2000 when it first came out, in my opinion. But you can't argue with the fact that prices are going up. That 930 I lusted after has tripled in price in the last 10 years, and this car also is going up, so there's a lot to be thankful for. But you can't own a 20-year-old car like this without expecting to spend the big bucks on it from time to time. If you drive it, normal servicing, and clutch, suspension components and brakes, that's actually not too bad. But even just parked, it ages. Rubber goes hard, plastics get brittle, seals dry out or they leak, exposed metal corrodes, lubricants go off, connectors corrode, electrics fail, and from time to time something unexpected and expensive is just going to break. Last year something did break. Just pottering around, and one day the ABS light and the PASM light, that's the stability system, lights came on to tell me they weren't working. And I can confirm they were not working, as I found out when I left 4 big snaky lines down the road. And that's a worry on a car with 650 horsepower. You need to fix that. So, what did I do? I took it to the experts, just for a diagnosis. Not just any Porsche shop. When it comes to 911s, these guys are the gurus. Well, they're always busy, and it's away at the shop for 3 weeks before they finally call me in for a chat with the headmaster. A diagnosis and a $1,000 invoice. The ABS pump has seized. Okay, fine, that happens. Now, an ABS pump is a pretty generic item that you'll find on virtually any car, most often made by Bosch. ABS has been mandatory on new cars in Australia since 2003, and something I didn't know, on motorcycles since 2019. Typically for a passenger car they cost between $500 and $1,000 brand new. And for old cars, plenty second hand, and they're generally cheap, whether it's for a Corolla or a Commodore, a Mercedes or even an AMG. So I went in and they gave me the quote. They didn't even ask me to sit down first. Bad news. The ABS motor cannot be repaired. Okay. You need to get a remanufactured whole unit. Okay. Better allow a couple of months and budget. Wait for it. $26,049.96, they said. As always, they were polite and professional, but they said it like a 26 grand brake deal was no big deal. Well, I can tell you, for me, a 26 grand brake deal is a very big deal. I drove home to consider my options. On a car with this much grunt, brakes, I guess, are pretty important. Now, there's no question that the car needed to be fixed properly, but there's also the issue if you fit a second-hand part. No Porsche dealer is going to do that because they can't warranty it and they won't be held responsible if something goes wrong. I understand that. And there's also the issue that the car's computer may need to specially recognise and accept the new brake unit. What's an example of that? It's probably best expressed in Ukrainian. Voi pamiętajcie czas, kiedy Władimir Putin пересадили дупу, а потім анус відкинули його. Okay, jokes aside, what did I do? I did exactly what you do. I got on the forums and started asking for help. And that's the good thing about owning a collectible or enthusiast car. People are always willing to help. Trouble is, I couldn't find a second-hand part anywhere. Not in Australia, not in Europe, not in the UK, not in America. And Porsche, being Porsche, constantly changed that part every year or so. So I needed one specific to my year, model and car. Very hard to find. But I did find an impressive outfit in the UK who rebuilds them. Very impressive website and reviews. Excellent. And they had a fixed quote that was very reasonable, a couple of £100. And yes, fixing ABS motors was their specialty. So my trusted local mechanic removed the unit, pushed my car into a corner of his garage and put a dust cover over it. I carefully packed it up with heaps of bubble wrap, insured it, took a deep breath, and off it went to old Blighty. It was exciting watching as DHL whisked it at breakneck speed across Australia, Singapore, Vietnam, Korea, Germany, and in less than 6 days it duly arrived in England. It would have been nice if it had sent me a postcard along the way, but alas no. Okay, that was a pretty good development. But then the first bit of bad news. Somewhere along the way, somebody, presumably in UK Customs, had opened the box, pulled it out, gone, shit, this is heavy, and dropped it. And broken off part of this sensor here, which you do need. But the real bad news, they found it had a seized motor. Like duh, we both already knew that, and they couldn't fix it. Seriously? So did I want them to scrap it for me, or did I want to pay to have it sent back to me? Well, no, I didn't want them to scrap it. Without it, I had a magnificent car that couldn't be driven at all, with or without ABS. So DHL again, back it came a bit slower this time, and the search continued. I'd have to say though, even though they couldn't fix the bloody thing, they were professional and good to deal with, and they didn't charge anything for the diagnosis. A mere £60 for freight and insurance to send it back to me. So Christmas came and went, and still no luck with the forums. And then in mid-January, 9 months after the initial diagnosis, up pops a second-hand unit at a wrecker's in North Germany, out of a crashed low-mileage Porsche Turbo, just like my car, with the exact part number. Hurrah! But why did the Porsche crash? Don't know. Did the brakes fail? Who knows? Does it work? Who knows? How much? €1,000, including freight and insurance. Yes, okay, why not? Ja, bitte. Shut up and take my money. My previous experience with international freight had been pretty good, so 2 days later, DHL tracking told me it had been collected and was on its way south to Frankfurt. Excellent. And that's when it just kind of fell off the radar. No updates to the tracking status. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks went by with no updates at all. As far as DHL was concerned, it had never got out of Frankfurt Airport. 4 weeks went by, and by this stage you can imagine I was starting to get a little bit jumpy. So I contacted the vendor several times, and they were starting to get a little bit evasive about just how much they'd insured it for. Just when I thought it was all going a bit pear-shaped, one evening, there's a package outside the door.
What the hell?
Never mind about the signature required on delivery, it's just sitting outside. So I'm glad to say the rest of the story is actually smooth sailing. A train trip to my mechanic, it's installed in a couple of hours, he bleeds the system, clears the codes, a systems check, the car's computer shakes hands with the new unit, doesn't spit the dummy, and I drive home in a magnificent Porsche Turbo with ABS and PASM, fully operational again. Huzzah! Total cost to me in Australian dollars, there it is. So now it's perfect again, a happy ending, and I'm breathing a huge sigh of relief. I think I got off pretty lightly out of all that. You know, $4,196 is still quite a lot, but it's better than 26 grand, or the possibility of 26 grand. If you're going to own a supercar, and it really is, be prepared to spend the money. I think I'm a poor man playing a rich man's game. Cars like this are meant to be fun, and this whole experience wasn't fun. The most fun I get out of this car is when I'm taking people for rides and seeing the expression on their faces. I so rarely take it out myself, just to enjoy it, and that's not right. More often than not, I'll leave it in the garage and take another car. I'm worried about parking it, who might scratch it. I certainly don't take it on the track because it's got beautiful paint and I don't want the stone chips and the rubber marks, and if you take a car on the track, you know you're going to wear things out really fast, so I don't do that. It's a road car, not a track car anyway. It's also the sort of car that just begs you to get on the gas and give it some boost. Like that. And you just can't do that. Just potter along, do the right thing, and that's a waste. Maybe we're just not bonding. Maybe I'm not worthy. So what do? You tell me, everyone. Keep it and drive it a bit more. Keep it and just be happy to park it. Or sell it and let it go to someone who'll appreciate it more and drive it like this. Thanks for listening to my little tale of woe. At least there was a happy ending, and we'll see you next time for next week's review. Something very interesting next week, fully electric. An interesting one, I promise.